All right, so we're going way back, way back to like 1982. I was 4 years old, and my very first console was an Atari 2600 that my dad picked up for me. I don't know, a yard sale or something, I don't really remember. And it came with 6 or 7 different games, and I never really got that many more games for it over the years. It was basically, here's what you get, son, and that's it. So my favorite games to this day on the Atari 2600 are Frogger. Absolutely just loved the hustle and bustle of that game, the simple arcade challenge of just trying to get across the roads and rivers and things like that. Just so much fun, quick, easy to get in and out of. Another game that I absolutely loved was Chopper Command, and this is a game that had a little bit more of kind of a progression to it, different levels and that sort of thing, where you would fly a chopper and shoot various tanks and things like that, over a very rudimentary landscape, but great game nonetheless. And then Crystal Castles. I absolutely love Crystal Castles. It was kind of a Pac-Man-esque game, if you will, but where you had to kind of collect little pellets or whatever and clear the levels by clearing all the little pellets out of the levels and that sort of thing. But interesting sort of map layouts, and you played as this cute little sort of teddy bear sort of figure. Just really enjoyed the game. Cool music. I actually played it recently on the Atari Flashback Collection on the Switch, and really enjoyed my time with it. So that's the Atari 2600, guys. Of course, there are hundreds of games on the Atari 2600, but those are the 3 that I played the most and enjoyed the most way back in the day. Now, moving forward to the NES, I never owned an NES back in the day, and by the time I really started into collecting, there were so many ways to emulate these things. I never really bothered to get into a lot of the cartridge consoles for collecting, so Mario 3, obviously, I played all the Mario games as a kid at friends' houses. Mario 1, Mario 2, Mario 3. Mario 3 for me is the epitome of 8-bit graphics. It's the absolute best game that I have ever played on the Nintendo console. Absolutely love it, and to this day, it remains in my top 10 games of all time. I absolutely love Super Mario 3. Karnov. Kind of a weird platformer, hard to describe the real aesthetic of it, but if you've never seen Karnov, check it out. If you're looking for a hidden gem on the NES, that's definitely one to look out for. And then, of course, the original Zelda. Now, that game was hard as nails when you were a kid because, unlike today, there was no internet. You couldn't look up how to beat the dungeons and where these secrets were, and sometimes the secrets were really dirty, like you just had to shake every tree or try to move a rock or something, to get something open, a pathway to a dungeon or something, and there was no way to look these things up back in the day. Of course, you could call the Nintendo helpline, or maybe there'd be some walkthroughs in a Nintendo Power magazine, but anything that I played on the original Zelda back in the day, I played without any help whatsoever, and I don't think I ever beat the game. Actually, to this day, I don't think I've ever beat Zelda 1, but I have a lot of great memories of trying to beat it. That's it for the NES. Now let's move forward to the Super Nintendo. So, Super Mario World is right up there neck and neck, like a dead heat tie for me with Mario 3. Of course, it's better in a lot of ways, and I don't necessarily think it has its own character, and that's the thing. Both Mario 3 and Super Mario World have character in spades, and I really couldn't tell you which one is my favorite. They're absolutely neck and neck, but that game is, again, another game on my top 10 games of all time. Absolutely no question. Link to the Past. What can I say about Link to the Past? Absolutely just a wonderful, wonderful game. The graphics were beautiful, the colors were beautiful, the music was beautiful. Absolutely love Link to the Past. And then I couldn't decide for my third choice between Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, or Contra 3, The Alien Wars. I may just decide that one of those is an honorable mention. I just can't decide which one I would say is the best and deserves to be in this kind of top 3, whether you call it most played games or most enjoyed games. But that's it for the SNES. Now the Genesis, a system that I did own back in the day, and really enjoyed the Genesis. I think back in the day I was a Sega fan. I did love Nintendo as well, but I think Genesis at that age, I was 12, 13 years old when the Genesis was relevant, and I think it just hit a little harder for me. Streets of Rage 2, I mean, the whole Streets of Rage franchise is fantastic. The Streets of Rage 2 was absolutely incredible, and still to this day is incredible. And one of my favorite games recently is Streets of Rage 4, which of course harkens back to that era of Streets of Rage 2, and it's just fantastic. So Streets of Rage 2 definitely in my top 3 for the Genesis. And then, you know, another one, Sonic 2. I mean, if you own Sonic 2, you don't really need to play Sonic 1, but Sonic 1 was groundbreaking and amazing in its time too. Hard to say really which one is better, but I'm going to go with Sonic 2. Absolutely played the heck out of that game over and over and over again. You know, when you're a kid, you don't have a whole lot of games, and you really invest in what you have, because if you're lucky, you may have 4, 5, 6 games for a system in its entire lifespan. You know, so you play these games over and over and over again, and Sonic 2 is a game that I probably have hundreds of hours in over the years. And then Toe Jam and Earl. I remember playing this game with my cousin Mike when he was, you know, just a 7 or 8 year old kid, and I was maybe 12 or 13. And, you know, just the the humor, the, you know, the character, the music, I just absolutely loved those games back at the time. Very beautiful artistically, just great looking games, and just a lot of fun. So that's it for the Genesis for me. Of course, there are tons of other games that I could absolutely recommend on the Genesis, but these are the ones that really got the most playtime for me. Now, the TurboGrafx 16 is a system that a lot of people aren't very familiar with, and that's okay, because it was not a commercial success. Very few people, there would be like one guy in any friend group that maybe had a TurboGrafx 16. I was that guy. And I bought my TurboGrafx 16 from Radio Shack back in the day, which was one of the only places that sold it. And I bought 5 or 6 games on day one, and basically was never able to buy any more games because they were discontinued. It was a commercial failure, so I had quite a few, just, I don't know, maybe 6 games. And of those games, the 3 that I absolutely love to this day, and I've gone back and played through emulation many times, are JJ and Jeff. Now, this is a really cool platformer with a ton of character. These 2 private investigators, JJ and Jeff, go on this adventure to kind of, well, you know, investigate something and solve a crime or whatever. But there's just so much character. The music is so much fun. It's definitely got a Japanese sort of a vibe to it, but these guys almost seem like 90s talk show hosts or something. I don't know what it is, but great little platformer that virtually nobody has played. Love the game to bits. And then Bonk's Revenge. And really, just like Mario, just like Sonic, all the Bonk games are fantastic. Bonk is this little prehistoric baby, basically, like your Pebbles and Bam Bam sort of thing. He goes around smashing things with his head, hence the name Bonk. And really great, well-designed, colorful, beautiful platforming game. Some interesting bosses. Bonk's Revenge is the second game, and it's my favorite. Bonk eventually even morphed into a shoot-'em-up with Air Zonk eventually, which was, I guess, the 4th game for Bonk. Where he was kind of a futuristic mech suit Bonk, you know, in a shoot-'em-up. I didn't like that one as much, honestly, because I really preferred the platforming style and the prehistoric aesthetic of the original Bonk games, you know, dinosaurs and that sort of thing. Just really loved it. Again, music, fantastic. Just can't recommend these platformers enough. Very tight controls, just a lot of fun. And then, as far as shoot-'em-ups go, the one that I own 2 actually, but Sidearms to this day is my favorite shoot-'em-up of all time. And this is a game where it was really impressive on the TurboGrafx 16, because even in arcades, for the most part at that time in like 1990, shoot-'em-ups were generally speaking either left to right or bottom to top, as in a vertical or horizontal shooter. Sidearms was one of the very few games that I had ever played at that time that changed perspectives, where you would go left to right for a while and then you would maybe go down into the next level kind of seamlessly, and then carry on left to right and then maybe go up and over things a little bit. And the variety of enemies and the variety of power-ups in that game, endlessly amusing. Absolutely love it. So that's it for the TurboGrafx 16. Moving forward in time now, the next system that I owned after the TurboGrafx 16 was the PlayStation 1, the mighty PS1. And just really quickly, there are hundreds of fantastic games on the PS1. If you're into JRPGs, there's dozens of legendary JRPGs. There's dozens of great platformers. There's dozens of great racing and sports games. Virtually everything you can imagine showed up on the PS1. But my favorites on the PS1 were Parasite Eve, which is a Square Enix, or a Square-Soft game rather, where it basically blended the ideas of Final Fantasy and Resident Evil into a vaguely horror-based JRPG with guns that happens in modern-day New York City. A very unique game, both at the time and even to this day. There's really nothing else like it, with the particular turn-based system, with the guns and the magic and stuff like that. I absolutely love this game, and most days I will tell you that it is my #1 favorite game of all time, and today is one of those days. Next to that, probably my favorite overall franchise of all time, and that is Gran Turismo, specifically Gran Turismo 2, because I feel like on every PlayStation system, the second Gran Turismo on the system is just a little more fleshed out. Gran Turismo 1 was amazing for the time, and it still is a fantastic game, but Gran Turismo 2 was just that little bit better. A little more cars, a little more tracks, a little more fleshed out with the customization of your cars and that sort of thing. So Gran Turismo 2 for me, absolute must play on the PS1. And then Twisted Metal, again, the whole franchise is really great, but Twisted Metal 3, I have the most memories of playing co-op with Cousin Mike, side by side, hour after hour after hour, fighting against the computer characters, Darkseid, and all these other fantastic characters. Just a really novel concept back in the day, having this car combat sort of thing. And ironically, now we're getting a Twisted Metal series on, I believe it's Netflix or Amazon. I'm not sure who's making it right now, but it's coming out. In fact, I believe they've actually wrapped shooting right now, and it's coming out soon. I'm curious to see how that TV show is going to do, because it's kind of, I mean, I guess if, I'm not really sure, honestly, how that's going to work. It could be a miserable failure, or it could be a huge success. I really don't know. But Twisted Metal, fantastic series that you should not miss if you're looking to get into the PS1. Twisted Metal 3 being my favorite. All right, what's next after the PS1? Of course, the mighty PS2. One of the most successful consoles, if not the most successful console of all time, selling over, I believe, 150 million or 50 million units. You know, just huge amounts of software, like I think over 1,200 different games available in North America, maybe even more. I haven't looked up those stats in a while, so forgive me, guys. Let me know in the comments if I'm, if I'm incorrect. I'm sure somebody's gonna jump in there and be the actually guy. But yeah, PS2, hugely successful console, and it's really hard to narrow it down to 3 games that mean the most to me. But again, with Gran Turismo being my pretty much favorite series of all time, Gran Turismo 4, 3 and 4 were on the PS2, and they were both fantastic. Again, but 4 for me, the even-numbered games generally tend to be the ones that I gravitate back to these days, and I've got a PS2 right here hooked up to my tube TV, and Gran Turismo 3 and 4 are both on my shelf. I absolutely love those games. Gran Turismo 4, legendary game that I would recommend highly to anyone who likes racing games, and particularly simulation racing games. Different type of game here, Odin Sphere, a Vanillaware game published by, I believe, Atlas, and this is a really gorgeous side-scrolling beat 'em up. I guess it's kind of hard to say, I mean, what you would call it, but you know, it's this really great fantasy story, and you play as these, you know, princesses more or less, and they're fighting in a war, and it's kind of a you know, side-scrolling sort of a thing with really kinetic action combat, which is, you know, kind of hack and slash, beat 'em up sort of combat. Just beautiful game that I can go back to and play over and over and over again. And anything in that style. Recently, a new game came out last year called Astria Ascending, which attempts to sort of mimic that style. That Vanillaware style, and that was pretty good too. But something about just that gorgeous 2D art really holds up a lot better than a lot of the older 3D stuff, to be honest with you. And then Final Fantasy XII. I mean, Final Fantasy has been important to me for a long time. Even on the PS1, Final Fantasy VII just missed the cutoff for me, because although I love Final Fantasy VII, I only played it once back then, whereas I played things like Gran Turismo and Twisted Metal over and over and over again. So Final Fantasy XII, though, is a game that I absolutely love the combat. I love the story. The cutscenes were so impressive back in the day. And even now, I've recently played Final Fantasy XII, the Zodiac Age remaster on the Switch, and I still love the game as much as I did the first time I played it. Moving on to the PS3, again with the Gran Turismo, I sound like a broken record, but Gran Turismo 6, again the even-numbered games. Gran Turismo 5 felt a little bit stripped down, and Gran Turismo 6 was and still is the most fleshed out Gran Turismo game I've ever played. Just so much content, so many different races, so many different challenges, so much about the history of the cars and the history of famous race drivers, and like so much depth in the car customization and so many different cars. I think there was like 1,200 cars in that game, like just an insane amount of cars in Gran Turismo 6. Gran Turismo 7 came out this year on the PS5, and I did play it. It had its problems. It's getting better, but it's loaded up with microtransactions and all kinds of stuff that really soured a lot of people on what is really a pretty good game outside that. But I'm kind of holding out for Gran Turismo 8 as, you know, if the pattern continues, the even-numbered games are really the ones to pay attention to. The Gran Turismo 6, do not miss it if you like racing simulation games on the PS3. Now, something new for this list is first-person shooters. And that's because I really only got into them on my PS3 when I got it, you know, many years ago now. Playing Call of Duty, the entire Call of Duty franchise with Cousin Mike, you know, talking 6-7 years ago. We played all of them, and we played mostly couch co-op stuff. The you know, the multiplayer maps that you could do couch co-op, free-for-alls, and team deathmatch, and capture the flag, and stuff like that. And those were great in some of the earlier Call of Duty games, and you know, Black Ops and Black Ops 2 and stuff. But Modern Warfare 2 and 3, and this, again, I can't choose between 2 and 3 because they're both fantastic, specifically for the couch co-op situation. Modern Warfare 2 and 3 had so many different things that you could do, and like so many different levels, and there were things where you had waves of enemies and you had to kind of survive different waves of enemies on a different map. You could choose different maps and different waves of enemies, and I have so many great memories of just sitting for hours with Cousin Mike, just going through wave after wave after wave and unlocking new stuff in these games. And then of course I think it was Modern Warfare 3 where you had the missions that you could do co-op, where you know, one of us would be in Overwatch in a you know, gunship or something, and the other one would be doing a mission on the ground, or one of us would be in a Juggernaut suit defusing bombs, while the other one was, you know, a sniper on a roof or something. And like, just so many great memories with both Modern Warfare 2 and 3. And I can't speak highly enough of going back and doing that if you have a friend on the couch with you. And then, as far as JRPGs go, another game on my top 10 list of games of all time is the original Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. I love this game. It's beautiful. The art and a lot of the cutscenes were developed by Studio Ghibli, the famous anime studio that did things like Princess Mononoke and Castle in the Sky, you know, that sort of thing. These beautiful, beautiful anime art style attached to a really, really great battle system that's kind of Pokemon-esque. And when I say Pokemon-esque, it's because you're collecting all these different little monsters and training them up, and you level them up and they acquire new skills and things like that. The combat's not really like Pokemon. It is more of a turn-based, hybrid turn-based and action combat where you're sort of running around, but you know, it's basically a turn-based thing where you select an action, you know, in the moment, whether to attack or use a magic or something. But fantastic battle system, fantastic music, absolutely just chilling, beautiful, beautiful music in Ni no Kuni. And the art style is to this day unmatched. I think it is the most beautiful video game that has ever been designed by anyone ever. Just absolutely gorgeous. So that's it for the PS3. As I said, the N64, I don't care. I don't have any connection to the N64, so we'll skip that one. GameCube. GameCube is a system that I absolutely love, and there are dozens of games, from your Mario titles to your Fire Emblem. There's so many games that are great, but the games that I put the most playtime into with my GameCube are Tales of Symphonia. Arguably probably the most beloved Tales of game of all time. Absolutely beautiful game, plays wonderfully on the GameCube. You can also play it on other platforms like the Wii, for example. There's a combo pack on the Wii with Tales of Symphonia and Tales of Symphonia 2 Chronicles, I think it's called. But just a wonderful, wonderful game. And then Mario Kart Double Dash. You know, who can disagree with what most people consider to be the best Mario Kart, maybe with the exception of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch, but I think a lot of people think Double Dash is better than that, and the competitive scene would probably agree. And then Star Wars Rogue Leader. Really both of the Star Wars games, Rebel Strike and Rogue Leader, fantastic. These games were cutting edge as far as graphics go and controls go. You know, the open 3D flight in space, fighting as TIE fighters and X-Wings and things like that. Just fantastic, fantastic game that still looks great, especially if you've got those GameCube component cables, or if you use something like a Carby or an Eon HDMI adapter or something like that. You can get some just stunning visuals out of the GameCube. It really looks and plays fantastic. So that's it for the GameCube. I could mention 100 other titles. Of course, there's all the big sought after titles like your Chibi Robos, your Fire Emblems and things like that, but these are the games that I played and enjoyed the most. Now the Wii, this is a system that's really near and dear to my heart. I have a Wii hooked up right here, right now. I play it on a regular basis, and I play a lot of things like Smash Bros. And Mario Kart and Mario Wii, Mario Galaxy. I love all of those games to death, but the games that I'm putting on the list for my most played here, Super Mario Bros. Wii, I think, is the best of the new 2D Mario aesthetic. I just love everything about that game. I love the levels, I love the music, I love the controls. I just love it. It's my favorite of the new Super Mario Brothers line of 2D games. Animal Crossing City Folk. I absolutely love Animal Crossing. It's another one of my favorite franchises. And I've been going back and playing Animal Crossing City Folk recently because I've kind of got tired of New Horizons on the Switch and looking for something different. I played a bit of New Leaf on the 3DS, but it didn't click with me as much. I like City Folk better. So City Folk goes on the list for sure. And then another game that's not really a Wii exclusive or anything, I actually have a couple different versions of this game, and this is Metal Slug Anthology. Now, for those of you that are not really familiar with Metal Slug, that's an SNK Neo Geo franchise, and I've never been able to afford a Neo Geo, and the price of those games individually on the Neo Geo cartridges is just absolutely absurd. So that's not something that, I'm not going to talk about the Neo Geo here, but I am going to talk about some of their best games, and that is the Metal Slug Anthology, which was available on the PSP, the Wii, and the PS2. I don't know if it was available anywhere else, but I have it on the Wii, and I absolutely love these games, and they present fantastic and play fantastic on the Wii. So I got a lot of hours in that game. I absolutely love it. Moving on to the Wii U, as we're kind of, coming closer to the present, and my absolute favorite games on the Wii U. I actually struggled with this one because I also played it on the Switch. A lot of Wii U games are now ported over to the Switch, so I kind of had to break up the list a little bit between the Wii U and the Switch. So Xenoblade Chronicles X has not been ported to the Switch as of yet. And this is a fantastic game that hooked me in right away. I absolutely love the aesthetic. It's a beautiful alien planet with alien monsters and a wonderful science fiction story. Great characters, great music, great graphics. Absolutely love this game. A game that is on the Switch that I played exclusively pretty much on the Wii U was Zelda Breath of the Wild. Which I bought on launch day. It was a Christmas present. It was actually money from my dad to buy a new game for a Christmas present. And I bought it pretty much, if it wasn't launch day, it was a couple days after launch. But absolutely love Breath of the Wild. It is another one of my top 10 video games of all time, and I played it on the Wii U first because I didn't have a Switch at that time when it first launched. I played it on the Wii U. I beat it on the Wii U. Another game that I played with cousin Mike all the way through, night after night after night. We would play this game together, passing the controller back and forth, and one of us might be looking up hints or tricks or tips or giving the other one advice on how to beat a shrine or where to find Korok seeds or something. Breath of the Wild is a seminal moment for me in gaming. It's the first time that I ever really dived into an open world like that, and spent so much time exploring and learning the secrets and things like that. A lot of people previous to that had played a lot of things like Skyrim or The Witcher 3. I had not. This was really my first fully open world game like this, and it blew my mind. A lot of people have problems with Breath of the Wild because they feel like it's a good game, but it's not a good Zelda game. Now, I've played a few of the Zelda games over the years, and I feel like Breath of the Wild is an excellent Zelda game, but I can see people's point where it did stray from some of the old tropes, like we have shrines instead of dungeons. That really seems to bother people. I don't know, but I was very happy with that game, and it is on my top 10 games of all time. And then the third game on the Wii U that I played the heck out of was Mario Kart 8. And that game got played over and over and over again with my son Kaz, and with other friends that would come over. We'll play multiplayer. One of us had a tablet, and a couple of us have controllers, and just so much fun to be had in that game. And honestly, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch is, a more enhanced version of it, but most of my memories of that game were on the Wii U, and I absolutely loved it. So, okay, what else have we got here? Moving on to the Switch. The game that I have played the most on the Switch is Animal Crossing New Horizons. I absolutely love this game. I have beat, quote unquote, Animal Crossing twice. I bought it digitally when it launched, and I put 40 to 50 hours into it to, get KK Slider on my island and, more or less beat all of the, level up my island to 4 stars or whatever. And then I bought it again physically and played through it a couple of months before the DLC came out, just earlier this year. And, gone through and played the DLC now, the Happy Home Designer, or Happy Parrot, or whatever it's called. Absolutely love it to bits. I've got tons and tons of hours into that game. The next game that I absolutely love to bits is Story of Seasons: Pioneers of Olive Town. It's a game that I'm still playing a year later, just going into it for, a 20 or 30 minute day and night cycle, just about every day. Just play a day. and I love farming games, and I love simulation games and things like that, and this game just hits different than a lot of the other Story of Seasons games that I tend to get bored of pretty quickly. Pioneers of Olive Town is fast-paced, and there's so much stuff to do, and there's so much motivation because there's so many things to level up and so many different things that you can achieve and accomplish in the game. It's just the perfect console-style farming game for me. A lot of them don't hit the way this one does. And then I think Dragon Quest XI probably. I have an on-again, off-again relationship with Dragon Quest. I haven't played all the games. I've played a couple that I've really enjoyed, like Dragon Quest VIII on the PS2, and Dragon Quest Builders 2 I play on the Switch and absolutely love. Dragon Quest XI was a life-changing game. Like, it absolutely just beautiful, wonderful game. Dragon Quest XI, I can't say enough good things about this game. The music, the graphics are beautiful, the gameplay is just so nostalgic, so warm and fuzzy. Just, you know, that simple turn-based combat. You know, it doesn't get overly complicated halfway through the game, which is something I absolutely hate when RPG developers add system after system after system to make it more and more complicated. And this game, it's just like this warm, fuzzy glass of warm milk or something. It's just this wonderful, familiar experience that just looks nicer than but it could be a PS1 game. Like, it's just, you know, I don't know what to say about it, but it's definitely on my top 3 most played and most beloved games on the Switch. A couple other games that I could really highly recommend too, although it's not really a Switch game. Diablo 3, Immortal or Eternal Edition or whatever it is. I get a lot of playtime on that as well. That's one of my favorite games of all time. And it's great on the Switch, but I guess that would be my honorable mention. The Switch is probably currently my favorite system, aside from obviously my Steam Deck, which I really enjoy as well. I think the Switch still tops it though, just in terms of the library that's available on it and the games that I currently own as opposed to the games that I own on Steam. I didn't really mention the Steam Deck in this list because it's not a console per se. It's sort of a console and it's sort of a PC, and it sort of exists in a different space, so I may make a different video. This one's already getting long as it is, and we still have a few more things to get through here. So carrying right on, let's get into the Xbox for a little while here. We haven't really mentioned Xbox. So the original Xbox, I don't have, I mean, I own one, it's set up right here, but I don't have a lot of games for it, and I never really played a lot of games on the original Xbox back in the day. It's something I bought later. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, obviously fantastic early BioWare game. Just one of the best, just fantastic game, absolutely love it. Fable is something that I want to love. I haven't ever beat Fable, but I have played quite a bit of it, probably 15 to 20 hours. Really enjoy the aesthetic, and I enjoy the fantasy story and that sort of thing, but I find the game's a little bit clunky. But I definitely have more hours into that than I really have anything else, except maybe something like a Midtown Madness or something on the original Xbox. What else have I got here? Halo 1 and Halo 2, I played on the Master Chief Collection on the Xbox One, but I'm sort of counting them as original Xbox games because I do own them for the original Xbox. I just never played them on the original Xbox, but I have played the games and absolutely loved them, so I suppose that counts, or you could just say I don't have a lot of connection to the original Xbox and leave it at that. Moving forward to the Xbox 360, I have enjoyed the Xbox 360 immensely, and quite a bit more time spent with the Xbox 360, and I think Halo Reach is probably my favorite game that I've played on the 360. Another game that I played with Cousin Mike and absolutely loved it to bits. Gears of War 2 particularly, I really enjoyed. Had a big box special edition of that, and just really enjoyed that game a lot. I really like the Gears franchise, the story, just the way the story plays out. I like that third-person combat. Let's move on to the Xbox One here. So the Xbox One is something, I've sold it now. I don't have the Xbox One anymore. I sold it to put the proceeds towards some other things like my Steam Deck. But I played a lot of Rare Replay, really enjoyed that, going back to some of those old Rare games. Titanfall 2, Star Wars, oh god, what was it called? Star Wars Battlefront 2, the story mode. I never really played the online, but the 6 or 7 hour story campaign was fantastic. Forza Horizon 4, Forza Motorsport 5, I think, both enjoyed those. And Call of Duty World War II, which is another really good Call of Duty game, at least from the couch co-op standpoint, and the story campaign for that game was absolutely phenomenal. I've played through and beat the story campaign for World War II twice. It's just a really compelling story, following this particular unit through World War II, approaching Paris, and then joining up with the Paris resistance to infiltrate the Nazi headquarters and stuff like that. Just a great game. I really enjoy that, and that's one of my favorite Call of Duty games of all time. Moving away from the Xbox, let's go back to Nintendo. The 3DS, my second, maybe third, probably second favorite console of all time. I absolutely love the 3DS. Part of the reason why I love the 3DS is because of the DS backwards compatibility and the literally thousands of games that you can play between both of those libraries on one device. My favorite actual 3DS games are Fantasy Life, which is one of my favorite games of all time. I absolutely love Fantasy Life. This is a level 5 game, which is one of my favorite developers, the same people that developed Ni no Kuni and Rogue Galaxy and Yokai Watch and so many other fantastic games. Kirby Planet Robobot. I've never been a huge Kirby fan, although I really did enjoy the last Kirby game, The Forgotten Land, on the Switch was fantastic. Kirby Planet Robobot is a very creative, very fun platformer that's 2.5D. They do a lot of really interesting and innovative things with the 2.5D in terms of moving back and forth between the background and the foreground. The bosses are really entertaining. The action and the combat is really fast-paced. I absolutely love it. Fire Emblem Echoes. This was the first Fire Emblem game that I ever played. And, they always say you remember your first forever. It may not be the best Fire Emblem, but it is my favorite Fire Emblem after having played 3 or 4 other ones. I like it better than Three Houses on the Switch. I like it better than Fire Emblem Awakening on the 3DS. I like it better than the Fire Emblem on the GameCube. I like it better than the Fire Emblem on the Wii. It's just the best Fire Emblem that I have personally ever played. I really connected with the characters. I really love the art style. I just think it was a fantastic, absolutely fantastic game. So that's it for the 3DS. The DS library now is another one that I absolutely love, and I think the 3 big ones on the DS, and I have one of those multi-cards with like 250 games or something just plugged into my 3DS here. So I have access to tons and tons of games that I can play if I want. The first new Super Mario Brothers was, at the time, pretty darn groundbreaking, and I absolutely love all the cool power-ups and stuff. Gerard the Completionist actually just did a video on new Super Mario Brothers on the DS just last week or whatever, and it really brought it to mind how much I absolutely love that game. And I'm really a sucker for a 2D Mario game. I'm not a big fan of 3D Mario. I mean, some of the games are great. Galaxy was wonderful. And Odyssey, I enjoy Odyssey too, but not as much as literally any 2D Mario. Zelda Phantom Hourglass, the black sheep, if you will, of the Zelda franchise. People really don't like the fact that it relied so heavily on the stylus control, but I think that's really great. You can play most of the game with one hand if you want. I think the game is criminally underrated. It is a beautiful looking game, and the puzzles are really cool, and the combat is fun. You just gotta get used to relying on that stylus. Nintendo was really into this whole touchscreen thing at the time. And if you go with the flow, similar to the Wii motion controls, if you just jump in feet first and adopt what Nintendo is trying to sell you, you can have some fantastic experiences. Mario vs. Donkey Kong, 1 and 2, but particularly 2, March of the Minis. I absolutely love these simple, fun, fast-paced puzzle games. It's just level after level of trying to figure out how to get through the puzzle, and you've got to move little walls and elevators and things like that around and get everybody through to the goalpost. It's very simple, but it's very addictive, and I absolutely love it. Of course, I could mention things like the Phoenix Wright and Professor Layton games, which I want to like a lot more than I do. Everybody loves them. Of course, there's some fantastic Castlevania games on the DS. There's actually so many wonderful games. And of course, I haven't really mentioned Pokemon, which I have a hard time with Pokemon. The only Pokemon game that I ever really got far into and enjoyed was Pokemon Heart Gold, which is on the DS, so I mean, I guess that is something else that I have put some time into. The Sony PSP. This is a system that I did collect for a while, and I sold everything in a trade, and these are some of the games that if I decide to buy a PSP again, these will be the first games that I buy. Jeanne d'Arc, a fantastic again, I believe this is a level 5 game, and it's a tactical game following the, sort of story of Joan of Arc through a, fantasy combat sort of a thing. Really beautiful graphics, really great combat. I really like strategy games. Sometimes they get really hard towards the end, and this one's no exception. I haven't beat it, but I've loved every moment that I've spent with it. Again, with the Gran Turismo PSP is a very impressive game for what the PSP is and has to offer. Is it the best Gran Turismo game out there? No, it's a little stripped down, but it's still fantastic to have a simulation racing game on a handheld from that era and have it look so darn good. And then one of my favorite series that I haven't mentioned yet, which had a huge presence on the PSP, and that is Ys, the Ark of Nephishtim. There's at least four Ys games, I believe, on the PSP. Ys 7, there's quite a few, but this one was my favorite and the one that I spent the most time with. I played a lot of other games like the God of War games and the Daxter game from the Jak and Daxter series, and quite a few other Ratchet and Clank games and all kinds of stuff. There's a ton of great stuff, and if you like JRPGs from that era, there are tons of good JRPGs. Maybe not great ones, but good experiences can be had, often for pretty cheap on the PSP. So it is definitely a system that is worth collecting for still to this day, because there's good stuff and it's still reasonably affordable to collect for, except for some, of the more expensive big budget titles. I think that's pretty much it for me. I wanted to mention the Dreamcast, but I own a Dreamcast, but I don't really have any interest in it. I just kind of missed out on that console back in the day. I did enjoy Star Wars Pod Racer, Star Wars Racer, Sonic Adventure, the Power Stone game. I never had Power Stone 2, but I had the Power Stone collection for the PSP, I believe. Yeah, the PSP. So I am familiar with the games. The Game Boy Color, there were a few games that I really do love, but on the whole, I never owned either one back in the day. So these are games that I've gone back to since. And the Zelda Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons games, Zelda games designed by Capcom, were absolutely fantastic. Beautiful games. Some of my favorite Zelda games of all time, and maybe unpopular opinion, I like these games better than Link's Awakening. Harvest Moon GB, great Harvest Moon game for putting in your pocket on the go. And of course, who could deny Tetris as being one of the best Game Boy games of all time? I think the version of Tetris on the Game Boy is the best version. Just absolutely fantastic game. I mean, what can be said that hasn't already been said about Tetris? So anyway, guys, what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments if you're still here after 45 minutes of me rambling on. What are some of your favorite games on your favorite console? And what games would you like me to try out and talk about on this channel? Let me know down in the comments. If you stuck around to the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Have a great day, guys. Stay classy.